Welcome. This is another episode of Yes, California, the Calexit Congress. I can see that we're having a delay in the stream. I'm not sure why. Hopefully that picks up. Want to welcome Daniel Rice from the Texas Nationalist Movement, CEO of Yes, California, Jason Wright, and Daniel Santoro. Thank you all for being here. Everybody's welcome. If you'd like to come on the show, we're going to be posting the link. You can easily come on the show. Let me just put that up right now. Give me a second here. So, comments. You can join the show. So today we're going to be talking about the formation of the Socialist Party. You can join the show to join that conversation. I'll be calling John Drake here in a second. He said he would be coming out. So that's just for everybody. A couple things to know about this. So Yes, California is not a socialist organization, nor will we ever be, nor will Yes, California advocate for socialism. We're just working with a group who wants to build a socialist party. And if Republicans were willing to denounce Trump and racism and say that they're willing to let people participate in democracy, meaning you could discuss secession as that is true democracy, then we would work with them. We would work with corporate Democrats. We would work with the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, etc. John Drake with the Socialist Party is simply the first to take us up on the offer. So that doesn't mean we're socialists, but we are dedicated to getting this party up and going because, yes, California is dedicated to continuing the conversation about the rightful future for California and promoting the idea that it's okay to have a discussion about the government you'd want in a functional democracy. So we've asked others to do this. They never did. We also have a lot of members who like the socialist platform. If you've been watching our past couple episodes where we've been talking about this, every time we do a show, people come up and are joining the show, very interested in this idea. A couple of demographics, South San Jose and Koreatown Echo Park are the two most socialist-friendly voting districts in all of California. 18 to 30-year-olds are also really big in socialism. And what promotes socialism to the youth and to most of the people who buy it is they want big change ideas. They don't want to do the I'll vote for the lesser of two evils just to get my guy in because they're a little bit better than the other person who's horrible. It's I want this kind of society and I want people promoting those big ideas to do that. Potentially what that means is that we're looking at 3 million California voters looking at the last two elections where Bernie beat Biden by around 10 percentage points and the previous election where he tied with Clinton. If you do that, we're looking at about 3 million California voters who are cool with socialism and okay to it, not afraid of the term and willing to join a party. And when you calculate that out in comparison to the corporate Dems and how much money they get, we're looking at about 3 million annual donations from those 3 million California voters. Every time we talk about this idea, we get people joining the discussion. Everybody seems to like the idea. California Socialist Party doesn't identify with any particular sect. We're working with John Drake. And there's the Twitter site. And again, we are not socialists. We are willing to work with any party who's willing to have this conversation. Socialists were just the first ones to do that. I want to make sure that's clear. Let me call John Drake, see if we can get him over here and get the discussion going. Give me 1 second.
While you're calling John, can we get an update on TNM and anything going on over there in Texas that maybe we should all know about?
Good morning.
Am I on?
Yep.
You hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Nothing really new. Just waiting for the 2023 legislative session to start up, getting our people ready for the steps that are going to be involved in with that, getting it on the ballot for November of 2023 for the whole state to vote on. Nothing particularly new that I can think of offhand other than that.
I'm just posting up your comment.
And by the way, my comment is my personal view, just my interaction with people. It's not an official TNM position because, like you guys, we don't take a position on party. Democrats are welcome in TNM, libertarians, whatever. As long as they support Texas independence, they're more than welcome. I was just pointing out a lot of people I've dealt with, especially when I was still in Arizona, would gladly dissolve the federal union because they know what a clown show it is.
Many Trump supporters do support secession. We prefer it. Yeah. Here's the second half. Just Daniel, they might not be forming a party, but the concept is supported by many. It's the swamp-dwelling GOP establishment that are loved with the imperial federal government. I could see that. Okay, Rich is here. Rich, your device is not connected. I'm sure you know that. Someone else just joined. Oh, John Drake.
Hello there. Sorry.
It's on now. I want to find the right format for this. Okay, that's how we're going to do it. So John Drake is here. Talk about the Socialist Party. Daniel Santoro is here. Jason Wright, CEO of Yes, California is here. And a representative from the Texas Nationalist Party is here, in addition to myself. And Rich is also here. Let's get the discussion going. So last couple meetings, we had people come on, talk about the Socialist Party with John Drake, and people were very excited about it. So I wanted to open it up to any questions people have for John Drake about the Socialist Party, and then I have my own questions. So questions from the audience, questions from anybody, questions from you out there, anything you'd like to ask about the Socialist Party, the formation, ideas, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then I have some questions. So, one second, private chat. That was cool. I wonder. I'm sorry. That was a private conversation. Never mind. So, John, my question to you is, one second. This is for every. How to define how the Socialist Party views the world differently from the Democrat, or I should say corporate Democrat. I talked to Jason a little bit about this last night, but John, I'd really like to get your thoughts. We have a bunch of policies that I'm impressed with, and you've created about 80% of them yourself with your beautiful brain. I love those synapses inside your cranium. But they are clearly socialist ideas, and they're clearly things the Democratic Party wouldn't do, and we're continuing to flesh those out. But I also wanted to be able to talk about in the PDF and the website, and in the interview that you and I will eventually do with Different Things podcast, how philosophically a socialist party would view things differently from a Democratic Party. For example, on the topic of prisons and criminal justice reform, when I was talking to Jason last night, it seemed like the corporate Democrat perspective, and tell me if I'm getting this wrong, John, I want to get your answers. This is just to let you know where we're coming from. The corporate Democrat perspective would be private prisons are cool, right? There's money to be made. There's contracts to be given out. I'm a Democrat and I talk a good game, but really I'll accept money from private prisons in order to get a bunch of them here and fund my campaign. A socialist would say that is wrong to make profit on human misery. And you should not have that perspective of, we got to have prisons, so how can I pad my wallet anyways. It should be strictly from a concern of what's good for humans. How do you feel about that philosophical difference? Do you feel that's accurate to compare a socialist to a Democrat in that manner? And do you have other examples of how you think Democrats or corporate Democrats fundamentally view the world differently than socialists?
In general, I'm gonna generalize.
Please.
I'm going to generalize more often than not. I don't even believe that Democrats necessarily have an ideology. I believe the thing that makes us different is that we do, and we're not just motivated by a money incentive or money structures. We're actually out here to set a goal and create a society that looks like A, B, C, or D. And the problem with Democrats is that they support policies, but I don't think that they actually support anything that actually fundamentally creates a society for the better in a unique way, in a way that is outside of the current that is outside of the current I guess I would call the current
Paradigm?
conceptual knowledge, and I think the reason why so many other states and countries around the world have been successful in bettering the material conditions of their workers and their people in general is because they did have an ideology. It wasn't just about like money. It wasn't about like just doing whatever can get them the most money. It was about fundamentally shifting society to be managed and controlled by the workers and the people actually making the country function every single day.
That, oh yeah, that sounds a lot like what I got from Jason. Talked to Jason last night, and tell me if I'm getting this wrong, John. Jason was saying that if you look back in history, and I know that you like Upton Sinclair, right, John, in the 1930s in California. Well, Jason was telling me that he thought historically the reason there was a bunch of socialists in the 1930s was because there was the 1920s. And the 1920s was the roaring 20s. A lot of people had jobs. That meant a lot of people were eating and working, and they had goods. Nobody had ever seen an economy provide for that many people that well before. And so people saw that you can have a society that provides for everybody. And then right after that vision they saw in the 20s, we went to the Great Depression in the 1930s. And so socialism came about because people got a taste of what the good life could look like, and they saw that you actually can materially provide for a lot of people. And then they saw the Depression and goes, we have to do things in order to ensure that. Do you feel that's historically accurate? What do you feel about that story?
I mean, I think that's accurate, but I think a large part of it also includes that many of those in the 1930s who were socialist, whether they were young or old, very much lived through the Industrial Revolution, or the immediate aftermath of the first Industrial Revolution, in which you had almost this unchained kind of capitalism going about, and not only not caring about the worker, but they did not care about the society around them, and it was profit for the sake of profit and not profit for the sake of benefiting anyone else except that owner of those means of productions. And so what you had is that you had these children of either child laborers, you had these children of factory of the first factory unions, you had children of the first labor movement that went out there and demanded rights, and combined with just an overall presence of it's time that society can do more for its people. I mean, the early 1910s, early 1920s, was an era of idealism. It was an era that we can be more than ourselves. We can do more than we can do more than what we've ever done before. It was essentially like a Gilded Age of sorts, and now we're sort of back at it, where we're sort of seeing this unchecked capitalism, this unchained kind of market, where it's almost as if the market comes first and everyone else is sort of cannon fodder in between. And that's not how society should work, and that's not how we move on as a society and become a lot better. In fact, it creates a lot more problems and makes it so that people's lives and people's very, very way of living is up for grabs and up in the air, and can never be something that and can never be something that can be made better. So we here at the SPC like want to keep drilling and want to keep moving the party along to actually sort of create a society that's based off of these beliefs that we hold dear and that we hold close, and then have the policies sort of fall in line to create those to create those things that we're trying to accomplish. Not so much we're just supporting policies for the sake of policies because they're good for the public. We're supporting policies because they will ultimately better society.
Versus the corporate Democrat perspective, which would be, yeah, I want to say we want a better society, but really, how can I better my pocketbooks?
Basically.
Okay. Some of the other things I had to differentiate the Socialist Party from the Democratic Party was, so the Democratic Party will talk about police reform, but they will not touch police reform unions. So they will not touch police unions, which is how you're going to get real reform. So they'll talk a big game about police reform and BLM, but they won't actually go after the police unions, and they won't actually do real reform because they need those police unions to win votes. So it's not about necessarily doing the right thing. It's about securing their votes. They also will never have any reform of the teachers union, because that's also another voting bloc. So no education reform. They also will tease people about universal health care and then not come through at the very end. And one of my favorite ones is that the corporate Democrats will fund wars instead of funding people. For example, in the Ukraine war, the American government under Democratic leadership sent $40 billion to Ukraine, which, hey, maybe that's a great thing to do. But at the same day, they denied a $40 billion loan to help small businesses who dealt with COVID-19. So Ukraine gets $40 billion, but our own people who are struggling as small business owners don't get $40 billion. Last week, we saw where Ukraine got, I think, $300 million. And then they told the military, hey, I know inflation's bad. We're not going to help pay our soldiers, Marines, airmen, and sailors anymore to deal with inflation. You all can go on welfare. So Ukraine gets money for wars. We can't fund our own veterans to keep them out of poverty, and we can't fund our own small businesses. And I just thought that seems to me like something the Socialist Party would never do. It'd never go, hey, is there a foreign war? Let's fund that before we take care of our own folks. Am I getting this wrong, or is this something that the Socialist Party would do?
Well, no, I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I think war tends to be like a very difficult topic, but I think that if you're willing to sacrifice the balance, stability, and ultimately the I guess financial independence of the people at home, then why are you investing so much in a foreign war? What is the how would you say, what is the external interest driving that? And and even in California, a big part of our industry is military informations technology. Whether it's and especially in the United States, the biggest industry that we have by far is the military industrial complex. Whether it's selling weapons, selling munitions, selling boots for hire, selling weaponry in some kind of capacity, selling information. California is almost just as guilty in that, because we also have a stake in trying to bolster that, no matter how much we say we don't like war. I mean, it's always actions speak louder than words, and a huge part of California's business is military information technology, and so that's why we would actively go out of our way to fund these kinds of wars. Now, that's not to say that these aren't moral wars, or that these are just wars or unjust wars. I like to say that the party doesn't really take a stance on that sort of stuff. I believe in what is the best way for a state to survive and thrive for its people. And so I have to do an outweigh the cost and benefit analysis. And if we're going to spend, let's say, as a state, $400 million on foreign aid, in a country that's like thousands of miles away from us. But we have a large homeless child population. You have 5,000 kids going every single night, going to bed without food. You have unaffordable education, sky high medical bill prices. You have unaffordable rent and a continuing housing shortage, and couple that with an absolutely failing environment, because of climate change and the failure to address these issues in an effective manner. I consider fixing those issues we have at home more of a priority than helping a country so far away that it virtually has nothing to do with us. That be, and I think that's the whole thing. We I think that the current DNC is very much about virtue signaling, and about like showing, look how great we are. Forget all the bad stuff, because look, we're helping this regime stay in power, because they're being oppressed by the Russians, as if they didn't vote on wars in which the United States was oppressing other forms of regimes, in other countries, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in South America, whether it's in Asia, whether it's in Africa. And so simply put, I think we have a much different perspective on where government money should be going, um, compared to the current DNC.
That's just to summarize it down, because I'm trying to understand the differences here between the the Democratic Party and Socialist Party, because we have to make those very clear, and I'm not as versed on this. So would it be fair to say that when you have a foreign war to fund, but you also have a domestic need, that the Socialist Party would definitely make sure that we were going to at least fund that domestic need? Let's say
Yeah.
the Ukrainian war is the most righteous war ever. The question to you is, would you let your veterans go on welfare before you funded another war? Or would you go, that's horrible, we take care of our own people first, and we don't let them go on food stamps when they're defending us, and we don't let our business people collapse because we need to have a local economy here? Is it safe to say that the California Socialist Party would be one where we prioritize domestic investments over investing in foreign wars?
I would I think before we'd even be able to answer that question, because for example, like let's say it was a world war, and California was going to be like blown off the face of the map. Um,
Sure.
I think in certain cases, it can be made obviously that California should invest in that war, because that's what's best for it. But in general, for foreign wars that have like almost zero effect on California, and the United States foreign policy has almost relatively no effect on that war, I see it more as a a useless gesture, that's meant to win points, like morality points more so than actually solve anything. And in that case, then I say yes. The needs of the domestic issues here at home outweigh whatever else is going on. I think like a lot of socialists, and I think that's even a split among socialists, because there are many socialists that get bogged down in, oh, we have to spread socialism throughout the world and everything. And my personal belief, for example, is that in order for socialism to be successful everywhere else, it needs a firm and strong foundation here at home. So I consider myself pretty much a one nation socialist, where we have a hub of socialism where we live, and then people can see either what we're doing, or we can help them build the thing that we've built here outside of our own system. I want to keep everything that we have intact and safe and continuing, and then worry about everything else.
Okay, so I think that's a yes.
Yes, basically.
Okay, so
it's also kind of complicated, which is why I've been kind of phrasing it this way.
I hear you. Unfortunately, I had this conversation with Jason. Most people are at a 10th grade reading level. We're going to need very simple, this color, not that color, this, not that, to differentiate ourselves from the California Democratic Party. And it's going to need to be able to be a relatively short statement. Telling people, here's 3 pages, and we have a nuanced opinion of when we'd fund foreign wars, would be less than great marketing. That's what I was kind of going for. Can we say socialists would always prioritize domestic policies over foreign wars?
Yeah, 100%.
I get you over, if there's a World War II type thing, but we haven't faced a World War II type existential crisis since World War II. Vietnam was not one. The Iraq War was not one. The War on Terror was not one. The invasion of Panama was not one, and neither is the Ukraine war. I mean, these are not things that, if they go bad, they mean there's a landing party showing up on the beaches of America. That's none of the crisis since World War II achieved that. So short of a World War II type crisis, could we say generally the Socialist Party would make sure that we pay for our own people?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. No doubt.
Let me ask you about police reform. So one of the things I really didn't like was the California Democratic Party worked with the Black Lives Matter movement to draft legislation on police reform. And then the day before they passed the bill, they scrapped 3 key provisions from the law that actually gave teeth to allow cops to be legally punished for murder. And they scrapped those 3 parts, and then the California Democrats passed the bill anyways. And then the Governor Newsom and every single African-American California Democratic legislator went on TV and said this was a great day for justice, and did not bring up how they changed the bill at the last moment and BLM had pulled out its support for the bill. Can we say that's kind of a corporate Democrat thing to do, to work with a social movement, say we care about your issue, and then at the last moment trick them so that they don't get real reform because we don't want to challenge police unions? Could we also say that the Socialist Party would not be so indebted to police officers unions that we would lie to the California people, trick all California African Americans, and pass unmeaningful legislation while pretending that we did?
Oh yeah, 100%. I would actually say it's quite on point for Democrats to do things like that at home and in the federal government. So how I would actually characterize it is, I would say that the Socialist Party wouldn't have any negotiation or any talks at all with police unions. I think that's a disservice to everyone, and especially with public institution. I believe that if you are representing the state in any sort of capacity, if you are representing either state security or state education or whatever, I believe that since you are accountable to the people and you are accountable to the taxpayers, I don't believe you should have some sort of entity going out and representing you. I believe that you should be representing yourself. That's my personal belief. And it mainly has to do um, um, with the fact that you're not just a worker, you are a government worker. You work for the public, and so I think you need to be held accountable by the public as an individual. If you mess up, if you do something wrong, um, but yeah, it's very much on point, and it's actually kind of cringe, which is one reason why I'm very much in support of pushing for the original Black Lives Matter police reforms that they were talking about. And that's not but I also want to emphasize it's not this whole new version of police reform that's sort of like seeping that happened in like Portland or Seattle or even in New York and other places and other pockets around the country about police abolition, about prison abolition, like public prison abolition. Where I like I get it that we have we have problems with our institutions and that we can sometimes have like a lack of faith in them. But I think to be idealistic to the point where we're actually endangering ourselves is actually counterproductive to doing what we believe is right. And so, I mean, I would love to say that we live, that we want to live in some kind of utopia, but the fact is, are going to have to exist in some capacity, and law enforcement will have to exist in some capacity that is enforced and controlled by local governments or even the state. And so I'm not going to sit here and be like, police abolition, prison abolition. I'm saying police and prison reform.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Reform, not abolition. I was not really a big fan of necessarily defunding the police, although I believed in police reform. And I just wanted to get it clear that the Socialist Party going forward would be one where if we say we're doing real police reform and that means taking on the police unions, that we would actually do that, because that's something the Democrats will not do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would the Socialist Party say that we are for a woman's right to choose to have access to an abortion, and then also fund candidates who were for denying a woman's right to choose?
We are pro-choice unequivocally, and any candidate who stands against a woman's right to choose and a woman's right to pursue what it is they want to do with their own body, we do not endorse them in any capacity, any form whatsoever. If you are joining the SPC, the Socialist Party of California, you agree to follow our guidelines and our belief structure, and part of that belief structure includes a woman's right to reproductive autonomy, and that's like something that we cannot concede at all. So if you join this party for the sake of trying to change that, or join the party to because you don't necessarily agree with it, and then that causes you to try and create a wing of the party that is pro everything else except a woman's right to choose, you will not be recognized by the party at all, and we will actively go out of our way to not work with you, because the issue is that human rights are non-negotiable. We are all given human rights, whether you like it or not. And so you may disagree with something, but you cannot go out of your way to try and stop it, if that is something that we consider very fundamental to Californians or people in general. Like, I'm not like, if someone is against gay marriage, and personally, they cannot then try and change the party platform to be against gay marriage, because I consider that a human right, because it's someone pursuing it is someone pursuing something that is outside of what you care about, and so we're not going to concede any of those points, and we're not going to be like Nancy Pelosi endorsing anti-choice Democrats in Texas. We are going to be continuing to support women and minorities of all faiths, colors, strides, and backgrounds.
So we would not tell people, hey, we're for pro-choice, and then try to support anti-choice candidates like the like the corporate Democrats. Is that fair? Okay? Would we tell people that we're for universal health care, and then at the moment it comes to vote for it, pull the legislation so it can't be voted for? Basically, another trick like the Democrats did on police reform. They said, hey, we're for universal health care. Anthony Rendon said that, and I believe another person. And then when the day it came to vote on it, they're like, oh, we pulled the whole legislation. So is that something we would do? Like,
no,
people with universal health care not really mean it? Or is that just a corporate Democrat thing?
I think that's just more of a corporate Democrat thing, and even a Republican thing. The whole point is that if these legislative pieces are so bad, and if these legislative pieces are not going to work, why not let them fail on their own after implementing them? I'll be the first to say, if my party and those within my party passes a legislation, that a piece of legislation that ends up not working like we thought, that ends up making life worse for Californians, I'll be the first to say, all right, here is a reversal to that law. We are presenting it, and we are going to push for it. Like, let's say universal health. Let's say Republicans are right, and universal health care doesn't work, even though it works literally anywhere else. Well, let's say it actually makes life for Californians worse. Then I am willing to admit I am wrong, and then instruct members of my party who have some sort of legislative power to introduce a bill that would reverse it. Because ultimately what matters is Californians and our ability to live honest and hardworking lives without being taken advantage of. And if that healthcare system that we have is predatory, then we're going to have to reverse it in some form or another.
We have a question here. Before I ask the question, I want to point out to everybody real quick. Sorry, John, I'm going to ask you a question, but I just want to point this out. Yes, California is not the Socialist Party. Yes, California is not socialist. Yes, California is working to create a socialist party. Why are we doing that? Because we've been asking anybody to work with. Green Party members, Libertarian parties, they never did. John Drake and the Socialist Party were the first group to say, you know what, if you guys want to talk about secession, that's okay, and we will allow you to have the conversation. Doesn't mean the party itself is about it, but we're not going to ban that and say you're bad people, and we'll allow that. We've been looking for anyone, the Democrats, the Republicans, the Greens, Libertarians, to do that. Nobody would do that. Socialists were the first one. So I just want to point out, we will work with any party. Doesn't mean we're socialist, but we are friendly with the Socialist Party. John Drake has been very friendly with us, and that's why we're doing this. Now, to get to the question, Daniel Rice from the Texas Nationalist Movement would like to know if the Socialist Party of California would support an independence movement outside of California that did have a pro-life stance, a anti-abortion stance. Now, yes, California will always work with TNM, but the Socialist Party is a different thing. So I just wanted to couch that.
The Socialist Party doesn't endorse secession movements at all. It's so neutral on the topic. For example, I know Marcus and Jason are obviously secessionists. I am actually not. I'm a California nationalist. I believe California deserves a lot more respect than it's given, and it actually does so much more for the country than most other states. And so I think that we deserve some actual say outside of the representative wing of our federal government. But I do not believe in secession. And the party is also structured to not support secession. It just supports what's best for California. And so, no. And especially if it's pro-life. I mean, our goal is to build a socialist society. And being pro-life, for the most part, isn't... I mean, I know that there are some socialist arguments to being pro-life, but the vast majority, like 95% of the conventional wisdom, is that being anti-choice is anti-socialist, we're not going to do it, because ultimately we are still a political party with an ideology that we intend to implement. And so, no, we would not, in any sort of way, in any sense of the word, support another secession movement, um, or any secession movement at all, especially one that is contrary to our values, our fundamental beliefs.
So another question: the corporate Democrats said that they were against placing Latin kids in cages in concentration-style camp conditions last seen in World War II on the border. And they routinely said that was racist and white supremacist. And then they did the exact same thing themselves. Is that something the Socialist Party would do? Or would we say, hey, kids in cages is disgusting and racist, and we meant it, and now that we're in charge, it's not okay? Because that's what the Democrats did. They said when they were not in charge, this is horrible and wrong. And then when they were in charge, they kept doing the exact same thing. Is that something the Socialist Party would do, or would we be repulsed by that level of duplicity?
I think we'd. I know we'd be repulsed by this level of duplicity, and we'd work to actively change everything that is wrong with our immediate immigration system in California. I think the main issue is that while we are very good at protecting our immigrant communities, we are still sort of subject to federal procedures in terms of immigrant detainment and immigrant holding. And I think the California government needs to do a lot more to go out of its way to negotiate with those levers of power and talk about the better conditions that we need. I don't want to be like, oh, that's like out of our power, but a lot of the conditions many of our migrants are suffering is mainly due to federal oversight, and I think California can at least try and do a lot more to negotiate for either the release of families or at least the pushing of better conditions by creating facilities that holds migrants and migrant families to actually better those conditions that they otherwise do not have right now.
Orale, carnal. We're getting people excited now. So John, you have a couple questions coming in. So G Money 1996. Hey, I'm an old school hip hop fan. I love the name. Just wondering, what is the Socialist Party going to do about guns in California? Question for John Drake about the new Socialist Party from G Money 1996.
So I actually come from a gun-owning family. I have uncles who are hunters, military vets in my family. My parents have owned guns here and there as I grew up. I've shot guns growing up. My personal belief on guns is sort of like, I'll have them, just don't use them for like anything stupid, like but but as someone who supports guns, as someone who doesn't see an issue with guns, the thing I have an issue with is the almost relaxed nature of gun ownership and gun selling and gun possession. So, for example, if I am a gun owner and I don't want to be clumped up with all the crazy people who have guns and are threatening the lives of innocent people every single day, I don't want to be associated with trying to give those people even more access to guns. So I believe in necessary reform. I believe in helpful reform. I believe in gun reform that is effective. And I think to stand in the way of that almost is a sort of disservice to real gun owners, because why would you want to be compared to those crazy people by not supporting the kinds of meaningful gun legislation that would make it harder for them to obtain weapons? And so again, I support guns, and the Socialist Party of California supports weapons and guns in general, but we also support meaningful legislative reform that protects the people of California. And depending on how severe gun violence gets, depending on what actions needs to be taken to stop gun violence and stop the death of literal children, the number one death among children in the United States now is guns. Then we will do what we think is necessary to protect the next generation and those living in California, and well, with obviously within legal parameters. But we're gonna value human life here in California, and protect your rights simultaneously. The two are not mutually exclusive, and I think the issue is that Republicans and Democrats like to make these like mutually exclusive issues. Oh, you either like guns or you hate kids, or you hate kids and like guns. No, I love kids so much that I want to fix the gun laws despite being a gun owner, because I know the two can go hand in hand.
That's related. The second question was, what is the Socialist Party going to do about gun crimes? I think
So
someone answered that.
so a lot of the issues pertaining to, sorry, I'm sitting up now. Like a lot of the issues pertaining to guns is that you have a very high capacity of cheap made handguns flowing the streets of California in mainly urban centers, and centers that are predominantly minority majority, because they are funneled in through either gun show loopholes. They're transported and smuggled across state lines, and ultimately it's just hard to register weapons that aren't necessarily on the books before they get here. So what I would definitely consider is that I think the way California tackles gun crime is by actually not excusing. California has had a huge increase in excusing gun crime because of the social economic issues that these communities are facing, but I would not excuse it. I would double down on the sort of penalties that we give for for possessing a gun, for maintaining a gun, without permits and proper paperwork, without without licenses, so that we can get people who are more likely to obtain weapons illegally off the street, and then provide services within those prisons for these people, so that they aren't continuously within the criminal realm. And then as well, you want for the general public safety, I think we should also be passing laws that make it so that firearms, in my opinion, this is what I want to do. I'm down to change it if there's a more effective way to do it. But the way a lot of countries around the world have been able to stop gun crime is by storing weapons in government locked facilities. And that basically means that you can check a weapon in and out anytime you want, as long as you're storing it within either a government facility where you go to apply to take it back out to go use it for whatever you want, and then you after the designated period of you having it out, you have to return it back to that storage locker. I believe in that. I like that. I think that works. I don't think that in any way impedes on your right to own a weapon. But I would also definitely encourage stricter procedures at home. For example, I know, like, I would also encourage families to be like a lot safer with guns by saying, hey, if your child gets a hold of this gun and then kills someone with it, I think you should be facing charges for it as well, because you created an environment that allowed this person to get a gun. 90% of the school shootings, 90% of the school shootings around this country, you had young men go into wherever their parents kept their weapon, open it, take it, and kill a bunch of people. I want to create a society that doesn't look like that. And so that means even going as far as saying hey, parents, if you create an atmosphere in which you give your kids access to these weapons, you let them know, hey, this is where the weapons are, then I think we should be taking corrective action. That's my opinion. But I'm down to have further discussion on that. But that's my personal opinion right now. I haven't really created any gun policies for the SPC yet.
Okay. We have another question coming in. It's a good one. I'm just firing these right at you, John, as they come from the public. So, as part of a police reform, would the Socialist Party of California support stripping beat cops of firearms like many European countries do, and only issue those officers with a higher level of firearm training than the street cop?
Yeah. I mean, like that's a simple yes or no. Yes, I support that. I think in more high crime areas, I think different protections are necessary. Like I think if you're gonna have like a street cop or like a beat cop in Compton, I think they should be more armed than someone in, like, let's say the suburbs of Riverside. So I think it's all within good. I think it's all within good judgment. But I would definitely say that beat cops should not have weapons other than other than like a baton or a taser or pepper spray, because the whole thing is that it sort of creates an unpleasant atmosphere. If you walk into a place that looks militarized, you're going to be on more high alert, you're going to be more guarded, and you're more likely to do or you're more likely to act impulsively and irrationally when either an officer approaches you or through any interaction that you may have. And so in order to keep those interactions to a minimum, I think we should be definitely toning down the kind of weapons average street police officers have access to.
Okay. Daniel Rice says, thank you. 1 second here. New question. 1 second. This is a continuation of that question. Oh, okay. Hold on. 1 second. Sorry, ran out of banner space. Okay. Second question. John Drake, I was talking about this like a couple months ago, that guns should be banned in the major city and should be allowed outside the major city, but in a farm and country area.
That's based.
Do you support that idea?
I support that idea, but I think the sort of legal parameter that we get stuck in is the American constitutional right about owning and bearing a firearm. And so, like, right now, I think the sort of kind of reforms you have to discuss about has to sort of cater to those. But so we have to be as effective in the policies that we push to control firearms as possible. We have to be very strategic. And that's something like a lot of Democrats are not willing to do, because they like to get like those political points, like, oh, look what we passed, whether or not it's actually effective or not. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have to play the system. And so that means creating sometimes going like finding those loopholes within the wording of the U.S. Constitution, creating policies, and then sort of either having them be stalled for a time period, because they end up going to the Supreme Court to get ruled on. And if they fail, we try again. We try again until we create something that sticks, but one that is as robust and as intricate as we can possibly make it to prevent unnecessary deaths.
Okay. Last question, just a technical one. I think this is from the Texas Nationalists, and I think the answer is that the Socialist Party is a California-focused party, and that's why.
Yeah. So, yes, California is a secessionist movement. Like, hands up, straight there. It's also for California independence. the SPC, Socialist Party of California, is not for any of that. Literally, we have no stance on secession, independence, or any of that. We simply exist in California for Californians who are left wing. That's all. And so if like, let's say we have a candidate who decides to say, oh, we want to secede from California. Okay, good for you. And like
Right.
do you expect us to create the paperwork on how to do it? We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
Opposed to people doing that.
Yeah. Like that's the whole thing. I care about what Californians want. And if they want secession, and so they start nominating secessionist candidates, okay. But are they a leftist? Are they a socialist? That's all I care about.
Did they agree to the platform, right? You said you have to agree to the platform and you're in.
Yeah, that's all I care about. Like, I do not care about anything else than that. Just be a leftist. That's all I care about.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody? I think this has been pretty good. I definitely have a better understanding of the philosophical differences between the corporate Dems and the socialists. Thank you, John, for answering the questions. And as always, it's always great to let the people know that we'll take any questions they have. We have run out of questions from the public. John, is there any last minute comments you'd like to leave us with? I know you're a busy man. Last minute comments on your way out.
Well, I guess I would just say that the Socialist Party of California is your party and your voice, and so we're here to fight for you. We're here to create an environment that is sustainable, that is affordable, and that is secure for everyone. And that's why we're here. That's why this party exists. And I look forward to having each and every one of you on this journey with me. And thank you. That's all I got to say about that.
Thanks, John. Always appreciate you coming out. We'll let you go. Thank you for stopping by. John Drake, I'm going to post up the link to the Socialist Party of California for anybody who'd like to go there and check it out. Keep up the conversation. Also put it in private chat. And absolutely. So thanks, John. Jason, I know you're in a noisy place. Jason says, Viva todos Californios. Orale, ¿qué tal a todos? Jason, do you want to type out a message you'd like me to give, or is there anything you wanted to say for the meeting before we end the meeting? You could type it out too.
Yeah, just basically, I don't really have anything to say. Great meeting. I was glad that John showed up. I'm glad to hear the topic is progressing. I'm glad to see that so many of our fellow Californians are interested in what we're putting together here.
The audio is a little bit disrupted. Okay, we lost Jason. Jason's still here. John's gone. Jason, the audio is a little bit disrupted. Could you say that one more time, sir? You could also type it out, Jason, if you want. Give it a minute.
Yeah.
He came in clear there for a second. Okay, here we go. Jason says, Viva todos Californios. So thank you, Jason. Stay tuned. We're developing the party. As you see, we're doing it in real time. You can be part of the conversation. You can ask questions. We appreciate you being part. Yes, California is not a socialist organization, nor will we be. We are willing to work with any political party that says that it's okay to participate in democracy, that means discussing any and all ideas about peaceful legal change. Okay, we got Andrew Rojas. Criminalizing parents for juvenile delinquency sounds eerily similar to what the current VP of the USA previously enacted during her time as Attorney General. Yes, Kamala Harris did attempt to imprison parents for not taking care of delinquent children. And we just got rid of John, so I'll have to have him back to answer that question. I don't think that's what he was saying. I am not versed enough on the policies to say. So I will have to get this question to him.
I am versed enough on the policies to say, yes, that is accurate. That is exactly what Kamala Harris did while she was Attorney General of the state of California.
Right, but the question is that what John's suggesting now?
Oh, no. And that is very much not in line with the policies that we've been putting together. That would not, it would be like saying I'm totally against abusing animals, however, kicking puppies is okay.
John did say something about, yeah, fair, but John did say something about punishing the parents in some degree for something related to the kids. So there's some sort of parallel there. And I was not versed enough on the policies to be able to answer this question. So we need a better answer. Firearms.
Yeah, to me, it sounded more like children are still minor, but they are going on for someone committing some serious crime, that their parents will also, right? If parents brings that gun to school and kills a bunch of their fellow students.
Okay, we lost Jason. The question. Oh, there's Jason. Oh, whoops.
We are going to remove them from your custody, put them in group homes, foster care, give them some therapies. We are going because your child skipped school.
Even though you dropped your child off.
So, okay, so let me call John. Something about firearms was the issue. If kids misused firearms, then parents would be responsible. Is that similar to the Kamala Harris plan or not? Hey, John. I'm sorry. There was a really good question that I'm unable to answer. Would you be willing to come back for a quick? Okay, John's going to come back. Okay, let's go to here. Add to stream, comments. Okay, John. Thanks for coming back. Quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Rojas asks, criminalizing parents for juvenile delinquency sounds eerily similar to what the current Vice President of the USA, Kamala Harris, previously enacted during her time as Attorney General. So I think you were talking about kids with guns and something would happen to the parents if the kids with guns. How is that different from what Kamala Harris said when she was Attorney General and said that she would imprison parents for not basically policing their own kids who were juvenile delinquents?
Okay.
So how's the gun policy you talked about with kids' parents? I don't remember.
Okay. In my opinion, I believe that parents have to take an active role in raising their children to abide by laws. I believe that. And if a parent is going out of their way to be negligible in that, then there has to be some sort of recourse, especially if people are dying as a result. Doing drugs or whatever is a lot different, which is mainly what Kamala Harris's policies were on doing, is much more different than, let's say, creating an environment in which a child knows how to unlock your gun safe, takes that gun, uses it, and kills 20 people. I see the parent as responsible for that because they for some reason gave either that code to the child or were negligible enough to not even have it locked up in the first place. And so I agree with that kind of policy. I'm not going to go back on it because Kamala Harris did it. I think there has to be some sort of recourse of action and corrective action in that. How we choose to do it, how we define it, that can be different. But a lot of it has to fall onto parents because the main place where kids learn isn't in school. They learn about society and life outside of it, in the home. And so if we're able to create an atmosphere at home that values the life and values the rule of law, in terms of gun safety, that we are enforcing and pushing, then I'm all for it.
Okay, thanks. I just want to get a clarification to that question. Thank you, John. We are all good. You can go now. Sorry about that. Appreciate it. Very standing. Okay. So Jason was here. We lost Jason. I'm going to give it another minute for Jason to come back. If he does, we'll do last minute commentary from Jason. Otherwise, please check out the California Socialist Party, and we will go from there. I appreciate it, everybody. Okay, we're going to wait one more minute for Jason. Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate you coming out. Really appreciate it. That's from banners. Let's go to this. TNM. Thank you, TNM. Always appreciate the support. Okay, well, we're going to end it there. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Really appreciate it. And we will see you next time.